1.
Red flag. Red flag, so slow down.
What? The checkered flag is waiting.
I can see our Chequered Flag podcast being quite spicy.
5 Live's Chequered Flag podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome along to the podcast. Now, it's going to be a slightly different show this week, as you can imagine, because the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix that was due to happen this weekend has been cancelled due to the severe flooding that has hit the Emilia Romagna region in the northeast of Italy. So me, Jack Nichols, and the BBC's chief F1 writer, Andrew Benson, will just bring you up to speed on all of that, but it won't exactly be a weekend preview because there's nothing to preview. As I say, some of the worst flooding that the region has ever seen. And in fact, the mayor of Ravenna, Michele Di Pascali, said it's the worst night in the history of Romagna a couple of days ago. So, Andrew, it was kind of a no-brainer, really, that this race was going to be cancelled. And concerns kind of started, at the start of the week, maybe at the weekend, that this weather was incoming.
Yeah, I think by Tuesday it was already beginning to look like there were going to be sort of significant problems to run the race, and it was, I think, more than a no-brainer. I think they just had no choice. This is a major disaster in Emilia-Romagna, and even if they'd got to a situation where the Formula One teams had been able to physically run a Grand Prix, you've got the issue of access, you've got the issue of car parks, you've got the issue of the ground being saturated, and of course you've got emergency services who've got much more important things to do than be concerned about the health and welfare of 100,000 tifosi and 20 Formula One drivers when something like this is going on.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one of the big parts of it, isn't it? Because so far, we're recording this on Thursday, but at least 10 people have been killed. Thousands have been evacuated from their homes. Many are missing also. And as you can imagine, especially with a sport like F1, there's a huge amount of medical infrastructure required that all tends to come from the sort of local area, with helicopters on standby, medical helicopters and all of that. So I think to take that away from the relief effort wouldn't have been viable in any way. The way it worked in terms of the time scale was on Wednesday. I think everybody was told that you couldn't go to the circuit. So even if they had managed to, even at that point, Andrew, it was clear that the actual construction of not the construction of the circuit itself, but the paddock and everything was going to be a real stretch for the teams to even get ready, hypothetically.
Well, they'd already told people to leave the track on Tuesday afternoon when the weather was really bad, and the Santerno River, which runs right behind the paddock at Imola and right around Tamburello, the corner where Ayrton Senna was killed, that was in danger of breaching its banks at one point, or it looked like it might be on Tuesday and Wednesday. So Tuesday they evacuated the circuit. Wednesday they forbade people from going back again. Meanwhile, there were pictures coming in from all around the region of like towns underwater and cars up to their roofs in flood water and so on. And it was mid-morning on Wednesday when we started to be, or even earlier than mid-morning on Wednesday when we started to be briefed that it was looking like it wasn't going to go ahead. And then the announcement came before lunchtime on Wednesday, the inevitable announcement, really. And it's for someone who knows Imola well and has been there a number of times, and it was quite a surreal experience. And to see all this happening, my images of Imola are of sort of beautiful spring sunshine, there's little seeds floating by in the atmosphere, and a drive over the hills past the vineyards to a lovely little spa town where I used to stay. And, it was this idyllic, it was always an idyllic atmosphere, Imola. And it's the very opposite of idyllic there at the moment. And it really is a tragedy, as Stefano Domenicali, the F1 president, put it yesterday, to see all that happening. And of course, Domenicali's from Imola. That's where he was born and grew up. His first job in motorsport was working at the Imola circuit. So it particularly has hit hard for him, as it has done for everyone in Formula One. Everybody wishing everybody in the region the best they possibly can in such difficult circumstances.
About 20 minutes down the road from Imola, sort of southeast, is the town of Faenza. That's where the AlphaTauri team are based. It's where Yuki Tsunoda lives, and that's one of the towns that really has been hit pretty hard with the flooding. And Nick de Vries, the other AlphaTauri driver, shared some stuff on social media of him trying to drive to Faenza on Wednesday. The town was already flooded, so he couldn't get to his hotel. So he found a little village with another hotel in where McLaren was staying, and the front jack man from McLaren gave Nick de Vries his room, so he had somewhere to stay. And then the next morning he came down, and the hotel lobby had been turned into an emergency shelter for people who had to escape their homes overnight. And so that shows you the real kind of stark scenario, really, that it is around that part of Emilia Romagna at the moment. And as I say, Yuki Tsunoda lives in the town just a little outside of the center, and he's posted as well. And that's the sort of biggest F1 team, as it were, to be hit by it. Ferrari are up in Maranello, sort of the opposite direction, and not quite so much in that region. But it's the pictures of sort of landslides and mudslides that Nick de Vries shared on social media were quite remarkable.
Yes, it's sobering, isn't it? And of course, it all comes in the context of, everyone will assume that these sorts of climatic events are happening because of climate change. In fact, scientists are absolutely certain that that's the case. And, there will be people who point out that, you could see this as a bit of a morality tale for humanity, in terms of this is a sport that literally goes around the world burning carbon. And it's being, an event is being directly affected by climate change. It just underlines why Formula One is making such large efforts at the moment in terms of trying to go net zero carbon by 2030, introducing synthetic sustainable fuels in 2026. Just goes to show why that's so important for the sport to be doing that.
The boss of McLaren, Zach Brown, though, has called for more to be done on that front today, Andy.
Yeah, that's right. That's a story that broke this morning. McLaren, it came in the context of McLaren revealing their sort of annual sustainability report. But what Zach Brown was saying in a news conference that I was part of was that the Formula One regulations at the moment, in a way that they're forcing teams, he says, Brown, in some ways to pitch sustainability against competitiveness, in that it's some of these areas that they want to pursue sustainability in are covered by the cost cap. So a team has to choose between, do I spend my money on performance, or do I spend my money on this longer term thing that may end up helping performance, but at the moment is in the direction of sustainability? He wants to see the cost cap regulations revised to sort of smooth that out a bit, so that contradiction isn't inherent in the rules, as he puts it. He's talking about things like creating the phrase he used was a circular race car, which is what they call a moonshot idea that McLaren have at the moment, which is a design that focuses on minimizing resources, using recycled materials, expanding the lifespan of materials, and then, of course, disposing of them correctly at the end of life. So, I mean, these conversations have been going on in Formula One for a while about sustainability, but this is just a sort of new aspect that Brown has introduced into the debate today.
Yeah, and combined with the weather this weekend, it's quite appropriate timing, really, isn't it? So obviously, our thoughts are with everybody in the Emilia-Romagna region and the situation and the tough times that they are going through. And so, as Andrew said, there was kind of no choice. There's no way they could run the Grand Prix this weekend. Those are the main concerns. But if we look sportingly ahead to what happens now, it's another week until Monaco. So the triple header of Imola, Monaco, and Spain becomes a double header of just Monaco and Spain. Though everyone was excited, well, not excited necessarily, but all the big focus was on Mercedes this weekend, coming to Imola with its new upgrades and Imola, after previously it had been Baku for the next big upgrades. Now it's Imola. How realistic, how frustrated are Mercedes going to be? Obviously, they will be completely understanding that the race is cancelled, but the next race in Monaco, are they going to be able to take much learning from that with these upgrades, or now they're waiting for Barcelona?
Well, Monaco is not the sort of place that teams would normally choose to bring upgrades of this size. We're talking about front suspension, side pods, floor. It's a major change to the car and its format and design. But the car has been changed, and so I think while we haven't heard explicitly from Mercedes about what they're going to do, but I think the expectation is that they will just bring this new car to Monaco. But it's not exactly the ideal place to be assessing the impact and success of a new upgrade because of its unique layout. It's a narrow streets, it's bumpy, the track's not flat in any way. Changes of camber, places where the wheels are literally lifted off the track, as you often see at Mirabeau, for example. So they'll get some kind of idea about performance, but it won't be till Barcelona now, the week later, when they get really a proper read on whether that car is the step forward that they hope. Toto Wolff, the team principal, has talked about it as creating a new baseline for Mercedes. Of course, the other issue with Monaco is that it's much easier to crash there than it is almost anywhere else. And crashing breaks cars, and that means broken upgrades. So George Russell and Lewis Hamilton will be, I'm sure, reminded of that when, assuming Mercedes do take the upgraded car to Monaco, that's even more important than normal, is not to stack it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's about all we've got for this little mini podcast, just bringing you up to date with everything that's going on in Imola. Andrew, one other thing, actually, is it likely to be rescheduled? It's got a contract till the end of 2025, but are we expecting another race this year in Imola?
Well, we don't know at this stage. It hasn't been officially cancelled. They've been careful not to use that word in all their communications, but it is very clear from looking at the calendar that there's not really very many places that a new race could fit in. It's, they were planning 24 races, if people remember, at the beginning of this year. It became 23 when China was cancelled. Now it's become 2020. Now it's become 22. Sorry. Now that Imola is off, so they will look to find a way to reschedule Imola, but I don't see them fitting it in. And from what I'm hearing around Formula One, it probably won't be rescheduled this year. The question then becomes, what do they do about that? There's a whole knock-on effect of a race being called off. What happens to all the people who had tickets? What happens contractually? What happens about the race fee? Will they add an extra year of contract on because of that, or will they give them the money back? And so on and so forth. We don't know the answers to any of those questions yet, but I think the expectation is that this race won't happen this year in the end.
Yeah, well, the next race that will happen will be Monaco in a week's time. We'll be back next Thursday with a preview show, a proper preview show with everybody. We'll have Jolyon Palmer and Rosanna Tennant joining us as well. It'll be on Radio 5 Live, 7:30 in the evening on Thursday, and obviously released as a podcast. We'll have coverage across the weekend and all the podcasts as usual. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live. And yeah, everybody very disappointed, but understandable that the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix this weekend has been cancelled.